Speakers tonight are Joan and Ralph Rolfs and Leimer and Milt Meleander. The Rolfs are authors, historians, and collectors. They are authors of the resource books Phonograph Dolls and Toys, Nipper Collectibles Volume 2, and Nipper Collectibles Volume 3, and Hearthstone, America's Electrical National Treasure. Research publications include Lewis Leader, Official Photographer to Mr. Thomas A. Edison, and also Edison Little Folks Furniture. They are technical consultants for Hearthstone Historic House Museum, as we all know, located in Appleton, Wisconsin. This house was the first residence in the world to be electrified from a centrally located Edison hydroelectric plant in 1882. Joan has her BS degree in Business Interior Design. Robin has his BS and MS degrees in Technology Education. They are owners of Audio Antique LLC, a business that specializes in antique phonographs, antiques from the Victorian period to the 1940s. Laura Leimer is a native Appletonian, presently serving as the treasurer for the Appleton Historical Society. Milt Meleander, her husband, is a multi-area transplant to Appleton with degrees in botany and forestry. They partnered in real estate, Laura for almost 40 years and Milt for 26 years, specializing in older, classic homes and helping first home buyers achieve their dreams. They are fortunate to be residing in a 1919 four-square home in the City Park, Lawrence University area that has been in Laura's family since 1750. Oh, no, excuse me, 1950. Sorry. Laura's lived there since 1750. Both enjoy traveling, camping, fishing, and outdoor activities, as well as being active members in Lake Park swim and fitness. Laura and Milt are both museum docents and have been involved in the care and preservation of the Vulcan replica for many years. They are enjoying the ability to introduce the public to its unique history.
Thank you, Tom. And it's a pleasure to be here, see so many wonderful people that are so interested in the historic background of Appleton and particularly the Vulcan plant. I'm Robin Rolfs. My wife Joan will be changing off as we give this presentation tonight. The Vulcan Street Station, it's a national landmark in Appleton. And this evening, Joan and I will be sharing some of the history of this national landmark. We wrote a book titled Hearthstone, America's Electrical National Treasure. And we are also involved with the Hearthstone House Museum and the Vulcan plant that made history together. The story of the world's first hydroelectric central station actually begins about 8 years prior to the building of Hearthstone in 1882. It was in the spring of 1873 that the Van Noordtrecht family from Batavia, Illinois, paid a visit to the lower Fox River. Now, this family had a heavy investment in land and water power sites in Illinois and were looking for investments along the Fox River. Prior to 1870, Wisconsin was a leading producer of wheat. Flour mills were built along the river and harnessed the abundant water power. By 1870, Neenah and Menasha were boasting about 15 flour mills with a capacity of about 3,875 barrels of flour per day. However, by the mid-1870s, the production of wheat in Wisconsin declined, and flour mills were replaced by a growing number of sawmills and paper mills. Water power combined with the rich timber of the resources of northern Wisconsin made Appleton and the surrounding cities a prime location for paper production. William Van Noordtrecht, along with some of the local investors, including Henry Rogers, bought an old rake factory and the associated water power rights for the sum of $200,000. Their intention was to convert the plant to a paper mill. They organized the Ames Pulp Mill as a joint stock company with stockholders. In 1876, the mill was enlarged and it's changed its name to the Appleton Paper and Pulp Company. And it produced about 6.5 tons of newsprint every day. Now the water level that you see in the foreground of these buildings is about 17 feet higher than the river itself. And water flowing from this level going underneath the buildings provided the power to operate the machinery. Henry Rogers was manager of this mill. The rapid flow of the Fox River provided adequate energy to operate the Leffel water wheels, which operated the grinding and mulching machines of the paper mill. Appleton has 3 dams to control the water as it flows through a 39-mile run to the Bay of Green Bay, with a drop equaling that of Niagara Falls. This drop produces a flow of water emptying into Lake Michigan, averaging about 4,320 cubic feet of water per second. Water and water power rights to the lower Fox River were controlled by the Green Bay and Mississippi Canal Company. Among the officers of the company were John Van Noordtrecht, president, Henry J. Rogers, vice president, and Augustus Ledyard Smith, secretary-treasurer. Well, in addition to Rogers' association with the Van Noordtrechts and also manager of the Appleton Paper and Pulp Company, he was also president of the Appleton Gas Company. Now, the company supplied coal gas for lighting for the next decades. The future of Appleton and the industrial expansion would accelerate with hydropower from the Fox River.
Henry Rogers. He was in a position of moderate wealth and business connections that stimulated growth and investments. He was known for his honesty and leadership in the community. By 1881, he and his family planned a large home on a plot of land overlooking the Fox River and the paper mill that he managed. He would be designed by William Waters, a prominent architect in Wisconsin. By the spring of 1882, the house was nearly completed. As customary, however, on opening day of fishing season, he and his good friend from Fond du Lac, H.E. Jacobs, well, they would go fishing on Lake Winnebago. The two decided to take the day off and go fishing, and Rogers related. It was while we were sitting there in the boat when my friend Jacobs began to tell me about his new job. Jacobs enthusiastically described his new position and how Edison was constructing a steam-operated electric lighting plant in Lower New York. Wow, that Edison. Okay, so his presentation was so engaging. They're in the boat. They're talking, they're chatting. And his presentation was so engaging that Rogers soon lost interest in fishing. Can you imagine that? And catching that big bass? His mind was consumed with the thought of operating an Edison dynamo with the water power of the Fox. He could operate it with the machinery in the mill. Jacob's new job was to secure contracts for the newly formed Western Electric Light Company of Chicago. Well, on that very day, Rogers signed a contract for 2 Edison Type K dynamos with 250 bamboo filament lamps, along with electrical equipment for installation of the hydroelectric system he envisioned for the Appleton Paper Company and for the pulp mill and for his new home. The firm's electrical engineer, P.T. Johnson, was invited to Appleton in July 1882 to explain the Edison lighting system to investors. Now, Appleton owes its distinction of having been served by the world's first Edison hydroelectric lighting system to the courage and foresight to a small group of business leaders pioneering with Edison. These pioneers of 1882 had no predecessors. They were the leaders in the electric lighting business. There was no model to follow. Edison's original central station, that one in Pearl Street in New York, was still under construction when the Appleton plant was being projected.
The Appleton Edison Light Company Limited was formed, and the company began doing business August 18th, 1882, with one Type K dynamo of 12.5 kilowatts and 250 16-candle power carbon filament lamps. Customers were the Appleton Paper and Pulp Company, the nearby Kimberly Clark Vulcan Paper Mill, and the Rogers residence. All this was pending on the first operation of the power plant that was to light the lights of the Rogers home. The Type K dynamo, it arrived in August, and approximately 6 weeks of installation followed, supervised by electrical engineer P.D. Johnston of the Western Edison Light Company. Also, a local college student in Appleton by the name of Will Kurz. He was appointed the superintendent of the Appleton Edison Light Company. Now, the dynamo was located in the grinding or mulching area known as the beater room, and it was connected by leather belts and shafts to the Lethal wheel or turbine that operated the beater machinery. On September 30th, 1882, the single dynamo lit the lights of the Rogers paper mill along with the lights of the nearby Vulcan mill, as well as the Rogers home. But very changing mechanical loads placed on the beater machinery affected the speed of the dynamo, and voltage regulation was a very serious problem. There was no electrical meters at the time, and the operator, Will Kurz, had to constantly monitor the output of the dynamo by visually gauging the brightness of the lamp suspended from a ceiling. Well, within 2 weeks, the dynamo had to be moved to a new location. This location was a lean-to shed attached to the rag shed called the office. Now operated by its very own turbine, it served well for the next 3 years, providing power to light the lights of the Kimberly and Clark Vulcan mill and the Rogers paper mill, along with his newly built home. In October, the second dynamo arrived, and upon installation was placed into operation on November 25th, 1882, but its location was moved about 1.5 miles east of the Appleton Paper and Pulp Mill on the far end of the West Canal on Vulcan Street. The location was next to the Appleton blast furnace. Augustus L. Smith was the president, Henry D. Smith, treasurer, secretary, and manager of the company. The Vulcan plant was specifically built to supply electrical power to local residences and commercial customers. This third location of a hydroelectric plant has become known as the Vulcan Street Hydroelectric Central Station.
Yes, this station has the distinction of being known as the world's first hydroelectric power station using an Edison system, an independent plant specifically constructed and centrally located to supply electric power to surrounding residential and commercial customers. By December, the plant was providing power to lights of 3 residences and 5 industrial sites. Among the first customers were the homes of investors Augustus L. Smith, Henry Smith, and by the way, they are not related, John Wood, the Appleton Woolen Mill, Fleming's Linen Mill, Appleton Furnace Company, and the A.W. Patton Paper Mill. The following January, the station was serving power for the Atlas Pulp Mill, the Waverly House, the first hydroelectric lit home in the West, the Valley Iron Works, and Lawrence University's Olmsey Hall, the first college building to be lit with hydroelectricity. 2 years later, by the end of 1885, 2K dynamos were serving a total of 39 customers. Now the question is often asked, did Edison ever visit Appleton to see the Vulcan plant? Well, there's no direct documentation that Edison ever visited Appleton or Hearthstone. However, we work with the National Historic Park in Orange, New Jersey, and they did give us this letter. And it states, "My dear Mr. Edison, you may not remember that you, together with Edward H. Johnson and J. H. Vail, made a trip to Appleton, Wisconsin in 1883 for the purpose of advising concerning the proper installation of electric lights of the Edison system in the paper mill of the Kimberly Clark Company of Appleton. I recollect the incident, and due to the advance of the art of electric lighting, it was necessary to remove the underwriter's wire installed at the time and replace it with rubber-covered wire in 1885, when the 2-wire system of the Appleton plant was changed over to a 3-wire system."
Unfortunately, we have never been able to verify whether Edison has ever visited Appleton. It remains just the third-party speculation, I guess. Over the next 15 years, hydroelectric power and the Appleton Edison Light Company faced some serious challenges. Among them were financial shortcomings, a rapid expansion, a new location on Oneida Street, strong competition from Westinghouse and the new AC system, and a devastating fire in 1896. However, reformed as the Appleton Electric Light and Power Company, the utility struggled for another few years, and after another destructive fire in 1900, it was finally absorbed by the large Milwaukee-based Wisconsin Traction Light, Heat, and Power Company. That was in 1901. Soon this utility grew to become the Wisconsin-Michigan Power Company. And in year 2000, it became We Energies. There was a plan to replicate the old Vulcan Street plant and celebrate the 50-year anniversary of the Edison Hydroelectric Central Power Station. It was conceived in 1928, and the Wisconsin-Michigan Power Company was put in charge of the project. In 1932, the Wisconsin-Michigan Power Company made a model of the world's first central station plant, and the model was sent to the 1933 Chicago World's Fair. And today this model is on display in the lower level Hydroelectric Adventure Center at Hearthstone House Museum as part of a hands-on exhibit for all to enjoy. Now, since a fire destroyed the original plant, securing an original Type K generator would be a serious problem. And the only known examples were in the possession of the Henry Ford at the Edison Institute of Technology in Dearborn. Building a wooden replica of the dynamo was considered. But then it was decided to maybe first contact Mr. Ford with the plan. And Mr. Ford was approached, and he became immediately interested in the Appleton project as he was considering building the replica in Dearborn. He not only enthusiastically supported the project, but he also agreed to supply one Type K dynamo from his museum, put it in first-class working order, and send it by Ford truck to Appleton. In addition, he would furnish some light bulbs of the type that was used by the Appleton Edison Light Company at the time. In constructing the Vulcan replica, it was decided to raise the structure above the ground so that the flume and the water wheel could be examined from below. The Vulcan plant is an historic landmark named for the Vulcan Street location. It's also the National Historic Engineering Landmark for the American Society of Civil Engineers, the American Society of Mechanical Engineers, and the Institute of Electrical and Electronic Engineers. With that said, we'll show you a short demonstration of the plant in action. Well, with that, we would like to now introduce to you some people that are very familiar with this plant and its operation, Lawe, Leimer and Milt Meleander from the Appleton Historical Society, and they'll share with you some of the additional information as they are in charge of the operation of this wonderful piece of equipment.
Thank you, Joan and Robin. I'm Lawe Leimer, and this is my husband, Milt Meleander, and we are part of the Appleton Historical Society and with George and Susan Barker, who are now down in Texas playing winter snowbirds. We open up the adjustments for the Vulcan Hydroelectric plant. The plant is open on Sundays in the warmer months, weather permitting. The original site for the Vulcan in 1882 was on the south shore of the Fox River on South Lawe Street. The replica was constructed by Wisconsin-Michigan Power Company near their headquarters on Old Oneida Street, just north of the West Canal in 1932, for the 50th anniversary of the electrification of Appleton. It served generations of school children, including Microsoft CEO Brad Smith for the Appleton School District, in demonstrating the early electrification of Appleton. Wisconsin-Michigan Power Company became We Energies and moved its headquarters to Milwaukee. The Vulcan replica was given to the city of Appleton and placed under the Appleton Parks Department. In 1987, the replica was relocated to its current location on a piece of land donated by Bob Buchanan, very close to the site of the original plant in 1882. In fact, we didn't really realize how close it was until they redid the Lawe Street Bridge and found the old footings, the sluice gate. On May 25th, 2017, the Appleton Historical Society entered into an agreement with the City of Appleton Parks Department for the purpose of display and demonstration of the replica. It was agreed that the normal open houses would be given during the warmer months and any special groups as may be requested. Our first major showing was for a group of 10 Pakistani engineers, sponsored by the U.S. State Department on July 20th, 2017. We've had a number of U.S. engineering groups, private touring groups, and interested local citizens, totaling just over 700 people this past year.
We have been involved in several collaborations with the Hearthstone in telling the story of the early electrification industrialization of Appleton. The biggest surge in showings has happened after the completion of the Vulcan Heritage Trail in 2020. Typical Sunday attendance is often 30 to 40 people stopping in for a look at the Vulcan and a demonstration of how it's set up and works, and the importance of the Vulcan in the history of Appleton. We are presently looking for more volunteers to become docents. The Appleton Parks and Recreation Department have done a great job in getting the replica in good running and presentation condition. They've replaced windows, doors, belts, roof, much of the siding, paint, and general maintenance. There's been a very strong increase in interest in historical tourism in the Appleton area. We'd like to present Director Dean Gaza and Tom Fleck, and recognize Cameron Green, who is not here today, from the Appleton Parks Department, and Mayor Jake Woodford. We thank them for their great support, and special thanks goes out to Ann Klein, a major force in making the Vulcan a living replica. Mayor, if you stand up, help people.